This is Sunny from APNIC. Apologize, we're just getting the slides onto the system so they can be shared on the screen here. Shouldn't take too long. Okay. Okay, we are ready. We're ready. All right, I'm Sunny Chendi, and I'll run through the election procedures for the elections we're having at this conference here. That will be NRONC, SIG elections for the chair and co-chair positions, as well as for the IANA RC. So these procedures will be run through here in the meeting, and the elections were opened online. So I'll just run through quickly the election procedures. There's 3 members from APNIC region on the NRONC. One get appointed by the APNIC EC, there's the Executive Council Board, and the other 2 are elected by the community here at the APNIC conference here by the community. The elected members will serve 2-year terms, and the appointed member by the APNIC EC will serve 1-year term. So at this conference, we have 1 seat available as a APNIC representative to NRONC at this election. And that person or that individual who will get elected here at this conference will serve 2-year term from 1st January 2026 to 31st December 2027. We also have SIG and IANA RC elections at this conference, and nominations for these SIG and IANA RCs will be open for the elections at APNIC 60. For policy SIG, this SIG here, we have 1 position, that's Bertrand's. And also we have 1 co-chair position open for elections, which is Shaila's position. We also have NIR SIG chair, cooperation SIG chair, routing SIG chair, and also 1 position on the IANA RC as well. The successful nominations will be elected to serve in their roles for a 2-year term. So all those positions will be for a 2-year term. The eligibility criteria for elections, each nominee must reside within the Asia Pac region, be registered for this conference here at APNIC 60, and have registered and attended at least one of the immediate past 8 APRICOT or APNIC conferences, starting from 52 to 59, the previous one. Nominations, anybody may nominate any person meeting the eligibility criteria as I just described. Nomination must be submitted via the online nomination. We have an online nomination form published on the APNIC 60 website. And you can see the dates, when we started, when the nominations end, but for both NRONC election and SIG and IANA RC elections as well. The voting period, online voting available to both APNIC members and APNIC 60 attendees. Even though you're not a member of APNIC, if you're participating in the conference, you can still be eligible. And the criteria is the same as the one I just described. And you can, how do you vote? You can vote through Big Pulse voting system. You must have an APNIC login. If you don't have one, you can create one quite easily. And the voting closes at the end of lunch today. That will be 2:30 p.m. When we go for lunch break from 1 to 2:30 p.m., at 2:30 p.m., the voting will be closed. The eligibility for voting for APNIC member, each member is entitled to 1 vote for all those categories. And corporate contacts and voting contacts will have the access to the Big Pulse voting system. If you're not a voting contact for your organization, you can request your corporate contact to provide you that access level. Conference attendees, each eligible APNIC 60 attendee is entitled to vote one vote as an individual, again, for all those different categories. Attendee who meets the following eligibility, which is the same, registered and attending the APNIC conference in person here. If you have a badge, that means you're already registered for the conference. And also attendees, if you are registering, attendees must be checked in by 10 a.m., which is already passed, at the conference here. And registered and attended in person or online. After the COVID, we had some online conferences. So registered and in person or online, at least one of the immediate past 8 conferences, either Apricot, APNIC, or APNIC conferences. Declaration of result. At the close of the voting, the election officers will hold a meeting with the scrutineers, and I'll go through that in a bit, where the election officers will download from the Big Pulse system, because it's an online election and online platform. And the results will be emailed to the chair, election chair. I'll go through that in a bit, in the presence of scrutineers. The election results will be announced at 4:35 p.m. today in the AMM2 member meeting 2 session. The election chair will also disclose if there's any disputes and resolutions as well, and also disclose any communication from the scrutineers regarding any anomalies or issues. Declaration of results. This is an example. Each candidate, their rank, their name, and then the number of votes they received will be declared by the election chair. The election chair for this conference is from the local community here from Vietnam, and you probably would have listened to his keynote speech on day 1. It's Mr. Bin. He's the election chair. His responsibilities is to oversee the election process, appoint the election scrutineers, declare the election results today at 4:35 p.m., and resolve any disputes that he receives. The election chair is appointed by the APNIC EC, independent from any member, so he's not related to any membership here, has no interest in these elections. Election officers, my colleague Andre and Trace are the NRNC election officers, and myself, I'm the election officer for the SIG and INRC elections. This will be my last time, and my colleague Dave will take over from me from next conference onwards. So this will be last time up here as well. And the election officers are appointed by the APNIC EC and selected from the Secretariat. Their responsibilities are administer the call for nominations, manage the voting process, and retrieve the online election results from the Big Pulse system. And the scrutineers we have 2 scrutineers this time, In Ching Tan from ICANN and John Sweeting from Aaron. Again, selected by the election chair, or appointed by the election chair. And they are from our RARs, or the internet organizations, or ICANN, and cannot be APNIC members. And they have no interest in the elections, and they do not vote as well. Their responsibilities is to observe the downloading of the elections from the Big Pulse system and notify the election chair in case, if they find any issues in doing so. Notice of dispute. If you have any disputes, you must be lodged no later than 1 hour before the declaration of the election. And there's an email ID where you are to lodge election@chair@apnic.net. Who can lodge? Notices may be only lodged by the nominees or members through their authorized voting representatives, like corporate contacts or those who have the voting rights. And the election chair shall resolve the disputes, as well as, they will announce the disputes here as well during the results. And that's about it for me. And thanks for giving me the opportunity, Chairs, and over to you.
Thank you, Sunny. So, welcome everyone to this policy SIG. The open policy meeting is starting now. And before handing the mic to my colleague, I would like to throw a little rock in the pond. Secretariat deals with everything we decide in the OPM. They face the flaws of the policies on a daily basis. Should the Secretariat want to submit a proposal to improve the system, and there's nothing against this in the PDP, would you prefer full transparency, knowing where the proposal is coming from? Or would you prefer being kept in the dark and have a community member doing it for them? RIPE NCC has done the same thing 3 meetings ago, and their community decided to approve this. Remember that in the end, the community will decide whether the policy should pass or not, and the member meeting will validate it afterwards. This being said, we don't have much time to discuss this unless we got enough time at the end of this first session. But I would like to hear your thoughts on this matter on the mailing list. And Shaila, please.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first session of Open Policy Meeting at APNIC 60. This is a reminder of how we administer the Policy SIG. We have Burton with us as Policy SIG Chair and me, Shaila Sharmin, and Ching Heng as co-chairs. The Policy SIG Charter is to develop the policies which is related to the management, the use of internet number resources within the Asia Pacific region. And this include the policies for resource allocation, recovery, transfer, and the further resource registration. So at APNIC 59, we have discussed proposal 163, and it didn't reach to the consensus and sent back to the authors, and the status is withdrawn. For this open policy meeting, we are going to discuss 5 policies in 2 sessions. These are the proposals you can see. In OPM 1 agenda, you have all Burton already gave his welcome remarks. I'm going through the SIG administration, and already Sunny have gone through the NRO-NC SIG INRC election procedures. And after that, Dave will give us the Secretariat impact assessment on proposal 165. Following to that, the author will present proposal 165. For the second session, right after the break, in OPM 2 session, we will Ching Heng will go through the SIG administration again, and Dave will provide the policy impact assessment for the rest of the 4 proposal. You can see it over there, and following to that, the authors will present the 4 proposals. So these are the implementation step for the newcomers. If you are interested to join the discussion, first you have to subscribe to the mailing list. So these are the to submit. You have to submit a policy proposal first, and the proposal will go to the mailing list for the further discussion. And from there, if it reach to the consensus at Policy SIG, it will again has to reach consensus at members meeting. And from there will be a certain comment period, which will lead it to the EC endorsement. And there will be another period for editorial comment, and then it will be up to the APNIC Secretariat to implement the policy. It can take very long, or it could be short depending on the proposal. So consensus is a general agreement taking into consideration comments on the mailing list and to the open policy meeting. This is not a voting system. So if you object to a policy, you actually object to a proposal, you actually have 2 options. So either you oppose it, which is a minor objection, or you strongly oppose it, which is major objection. If you strongly oppose to a proposal, then we will request you to come forward and explain why you don't want this proposal to go on. And this is the link for code of conduct. You can go through it. And for gauging consensus, the chairs will consider the mailing list discussion, the discussion on OPM, the discussion on AGM and AM, and of course, CONFER. So we use CONFER for gauging consensus. It's not a voting tool. I'm reminding you again. All the registers attendee, they can actually access without creating a separate CONFER account. So if you have already logged in for OPM, you can simply click on the CONFER link below, which is confer.apnic.net. Also, please note that RIR, ICANN, and PTI Secretariat, they actually don't participate in the consensus call. These are some of the reference link if you want to know more about it. And thank you. Over to you, Burton.
Thank you, Shaila. Dave, can you come up to the stage for the impact assessment, please? Or the policy analysis first, sorry.
Good morning, everybody. When I took this job over, I was, let's just say, taking it over with a bit of trepidation. I didn't know what I was actually getting into. So I thought I'd better do some work and find out what's actually going on. So I'm new here, but new to this forum. So I'm a former network engineer, infrastructure engineer. I've been at APNIC for about 5 years now, but this is my first OPM as a policy manager. So be nice to me, please. So I spent some time going through what are things that we probably need to work on. So I spoke to many of the teams that actually have to deal with policy day to day. So our services team and our technical teams. And two common themes popped up. We've got some ambiguity in existing policies. So this creates an issue for the services team when they're required to do things like needs assessment. We also have redundant information where a policy has superseded something else, but we've still got tail ends of the old policy hanging around. So we decided, okay, here's a couple of examples. We've got consistency in terminology is a problem. We've got allocation versus assignment versus delegation. Somebody some time ago made a decision that we were going to use delegation for IPv4 and allocation and assessment for IPv6, assignment for v6, but somehow we still need to do allocation and assignment in IPv4. So there's a bit of an issue there. Policy wording, specifically in 621, it still states that we have a requirement for needs assessment for a detailed plan for a /23. You don't have to take a /23, so why is this wording here? So how can we address this? Now, as Bertrand's already alluded to, we've been having discussions with the policy SIG chairs, and there is precedent for APNIC actually proposing policy. I think the most recent one was when Jeff proposed that the 1.1.1.0 block was going to be released from reserve so that we could, loan it to somebody for a project. So we would like to go back to be able to fix these operational problems. As Bertrand has said, we would rather be transparent about it rather than having to talk to people and say, hey, can you propose this? We have a problem. We can still do this through community proposals. If the community has identified issues, please present the proposal. We would like to fix these. Or we could just do it through other editorial changes, highlight the issues, and then have the community agree on the editorial change. So the other thing I want to start talking about is policy is not just a twice-a-year event. Yes, we have our OPMs twice a year, but it should be ongoing. Post your ideas to the policy list. Have other people give input. It doesn't have to be a fully fleshed out policy. It can be an idea. If your policy didn't reach consensus, keep the conversations going after the meeting. Work together as a community to try and resolve the differences that you have with each other around these policies. That's me. So I might as well keep going. So wait for my next slide deck. So this is the Secretariat Impact Analysis for Prop 165, provision of IPv4 address space to IPv6 only networks for transitional purposes. The full impact assessment is published on the APNIC website and was also published to the mailing list. So caveat with this one, the impact assessment was done for 165 version 1. Version 2 is being presented today. Secretariat also notes that most of the items in the impact assessment have been addressed by the authors. Our general overview is that our belief is this can be addressed through current policy. If the authors can provide some more detail on their intent and the timing of this proposal to take effect, it needs more detail in the problem statement for us to be a bit more accurate with our impact assessment. Based on version 2, we can't actually give a specific implementation timeframe because we don't believe we've got an accurate problem statement or solution at this stage. We would require, obviously, to make changes to APNIC 127. What those changes are right now is unclear. But anything we would do would require additional work on the back end and front end systems, as well as changes to operational procedure. So where is our author?
Thank you, Dave. And about continuing the discussion, Prop 163 was dropped because the author did not receive any feedback. So there you have. Tomohiro-san, you're up next.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. Let me start. So, good morning, everybody. I'm Tomohiro Fujisaki, and today I'll present Proposal 165, the provision of IPv4 address space to IPv6 only networks. And my co-author, Kawata-san, is over there as well. Okay, let me start with the problem statement. So, many of you saw there are many presentations and statements that IPv6 promotion in this EPNIC 60 conference. So many organizations say that they move to the IPv6 only station. So, and however, even though IPv6 adoption is ongoing, many essential services currently, such as DNS, email, needs IPv4 connectivity. And one more, new operators deploying IPv6 only networks find it difficult to meet the existing IPv4 allocation criteria, which are written with their IPv4 based in mind. And I believe that there is a clear policy gap. Existing IPv4 holders can easily receive IPv6 address, but the reverse is not true. IPv6 only operators do not have the straightforward way to obtain the small amount of IPv4 that they need. Okay, the main goal of Proposal 165 is to provide a pathway for organizations deploying IPv6 only networks to obtain a minimal amount of IPv4 space, basically to support their IPv6 operations. And I think that this policy is intended to promote the real IPv6 deployment succeed in practice. Okay, this slide shows the situation in other regions. And at this moment, I believe that no other RIR has adopted a similar policy. However, the operational need for the transitional IPv4 use in IPv6 only environment is recognized globally. And we believe this proposal may serve as a model for the other regions seeking to support IPv6 only deployment more effectively. And this slide shows our proposal in detail. And first point, LIRs that qualify for an initial IPv6 allocation can request a single IPv4/24. And this /24 must be used exclusively to support the IPv6 only network. And this /24 is non-transferable. And importantly, the block must be returned to EPNIC if the IPv6 address space is returned, or once the organization has fully transitioned to the IPv6 and no longer needs IPv4. And next slide shows the advantages and disadvantages. And the advantages are the first, this encourages deployment by providing practical support for the IPv6 only networks. And second, it uses only a very small resources, one /24 IPv4, which is the minimum routable IPv4 address. And third point is it creates a more logical and symmetrical relationships between the IPv4 and IPv6 address policy. And the disadvantages is that slight maybe increase the IPv4 allocations, but we believe the benefit overweight the cost. Okay, and we also received comments from the APNIC community on the mailing list. And the community member said that the existing policy might already cover this situation. And others raised the concern about the enforcement, how APNIC would monitor the actual use of the address. And our response is that for the first point, the current policy assumes an existing IPv4 network, so it does not fully address the need of the IPv4 only operators. That is why a new criteria is necessary. And for the enforcement, we propose that the organizations requesting IPv4 under this policy must submit a plan describing how the address will support the IPv6 deployment. For example, through the transition mechanisms, need of the authoritative DNS servers, and so on. And APNIC would then monitor compliance by requesting reports after allocation, confirming that the IPv4 space is indeed used for the IPv6 related purposes. And other comments included, how does this differ from the final last associated policy, and what does the complete transition mean? And could this policy make IPv4 allocations too easy? And our response, for first point, and this is different from the final state policy because it does not make the IPv6 deployment mandatory. And for the second point about the complete transition is based on the applicant's operational need. When the IPv4 space is no longer required, it must be done. And for the third point, the strict usage restrictions along with the APNIC cost master evaluation on the transition plan will prevent the misuse and avoid unnecessary consumption. Okay, this is summary, and our proposal 165 provides a practical solution to a real-world IPv6 deployment, IPv6 only deployment. And it helps IPv6 networks by allowing minimal IPv4 address space. And it aligns the allocation policies more logically between IPv6 and IPv4. And the final point, it will encourage further IPv6 development in our region. Okay, thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to take any questions from all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tomoyo. Any questions or comments for Prop 165 author? Please stand up and state your name and affiliation. Thank you.
Rikash Chand, speaking in personal capacity and just questioning.
Speak in the mic, please.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Rikash Chand, speaking in personal capacity. Tomohiro-san, just a question.
Yep.
While I support the policy because I face this problem in my operation, the /24 allocations that you are expecting to give out, has there any analysis been done in terms of how many /24 APNIC has remaining, and what it would look like in the future, and if we will still exhaust the IPv4 before the whole world is completely IPv6?
Yeah, actually, I'm not sure that's kind of observation, but I think currently APNIC has the IPv4 address pool remains, so, and
No, but
Yeah.
I mean, statistically, are we aware of how many are left and how long it will take to exhaust that
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that we can mandate
Mhm.
some other proposals for mandatory IPv6 adoption?
or
I mean, just a future thought, like if there's only 5/24s. Sorry.
Sorry, Dave Phelan, APNIC Secretariat. We have at the moment, based on current allocation, at least 3 years worth of IPv4 supply left, at least.
Okay. Just-
So we are sitting on a fairly big chunk in free pool at the moment. But there are provisions in policy at the moment to deal with a situation where we are down to our last /16.
Okay, thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Aftab Siddiqui, speaking for Aftab Siddiqui. Number one, Tomiro, welcome back
Yeah,
after a very long time. Good to see you here. I'm struggling to understand the premise of this policy, right? So one thing which Dave mentioned as well, that currently you can solve this problem. So if I look at Japan, there are close to 100 members who only, as per the NRO delegation file, 100 entities only got IPv6, but all of them have either /32 or multiples of /32. So one thing is, your proposal doesn't help with the fees. If I try to understand if you are trying to circumvent the fees, so that doesn't help. So adding a /24 doesn't change the fees at all. Maybe in JPNIC, but at least nothing in the APNIC side. The second point is, what I understand is you are just removing the need-based requirement from the IPv4. That's it, nothing else. Because everything else you are suggesting is unenforceable. How are you going to check the transition of transition of IPv6? If I'm a small network, how are you going to test if I have transitioned to IPv6 or not? I will never transition to IPv6. I will say I just need that /24 forever. So I will never transition. So I'll be getting that /24 anyway. So the understanding I have is that this policy proposal is actually removing the need-based requirement to have a /24, and that's it. Otherwise, there is no other reason, there is no other requirement which cannot be fulfilled through the existing procedure. Can you comment on that one?
yeah, actually, the second point, removing the IPv4.
The second point?
So actually, currently, the policy text says the justification is need, and some NIRs actually checks the IPv4. Yeah, just, yeah.
Oh,
You said- yeah,
APNIC checks.
yeah.
APNIC also checks the need and the requirement whether you are using IPv4 currently from your ISP or not, and they are very stringent about that.
Yeah.
That I understand it is a very painful process. But if the proposal is talking about removing the need-based requirement, then I think we should explicitly mention that rather than going around IPv6.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Hi, this is Imtiaz Sajid from APNIC. So we have a question from the online participant, Liam Robert Stephens. He's saying, thank you to Tomohiro-san and Hiroki-san for your proposal. Could you please clarify whether this policy applies retrospectively? I believe there would be some organization that have obtained IPv6 allocation but have not yet considered the transition mechanism. Are they eligible to request an IPv4/24 block up to a certain time after the IPv6 allocation, or does it has to be requested at the same time as they ask for IPv6 request?
In the sense, just now, I think for the only for the initial IPv6 assignment. So do you think IPv6 holder can get, maybe can apply IPv4 with the current policy. So is this the answer?
Okay, so if I will, any other follow-up question, I will share.
Yep.
Matthew from LeapTel. I'm just a little bit unsure if a network's already got a IPv6 allocation and they've only got an IPv6 allocation, aren't they already eligible for /23?
Yes.
So this is supposed to be about allowing someone who doesn't have any space left to get an additional /24 to be able to do IPv6 transition? I feel they've already got IPv4. They should be able to do that within their current allocation. So I'm a bit confused why we need to do this.
Yeah. Okay, I'll reconsider this. Yeah.
Aftab Siddiqui, thank you for bringing the proposed policy solution here. I missed one part, which is cannot be leased. We have been through a roller coaster ride with Jordi in last 3 years, defining leasing. So, and it did not go anywhere. So putting it back as cannot be leased, finding leasing is easy, but then putting, I mean, relatively easy if you can see that it is not coming from an ASN, but there are 20,000 other justification that I'm not advertising my prefixes from somebody else's ASN. How are we gonna put that onus on the host masters to verify that information? Non-transferable, I understand that, but then do you consider the merger and acquisition as well? What's gonna happen with that? So again, both of these points, we have been through this probably 4 or 5 policy iterations with Jordi in the past, did not result in anything. So there are a lot of confusing points here and there. If you just keep it as removing need-based requirement for a /24, we all understand it very nicely and there is no ambiguity moving forward. So, or you can just remove the 6.2.1, which is the need-based requirement altogether. But that's another problem we don't want to discuss. But anyway, that's my point of view. I don't think so that this solves much. With that in mind, I don't think so that I'll be able to support this proposal.
Yeah, Ajay Kumar from Dikix India, speaking on behalf of personal capacity. So I also don't support this proposal because this is removing the need-based requirement justification, as well as there will be problem on trying to control how these IP addresses are being leased or not leased. So that's why I oppose this proposal. Thank you.
Hi, Christopher Hawker from Australia, speaking for myself. One thing I wanted to confirm, if somebody was to apply for address space under this proposal, would this be included as part of their maximum /23 delegation that they're able to receive from the Secretariat? Or would this sit on top of that maximum 23 allocation or delegation, sorry?
Yeah, I answered on the main, as I answered on the main, this /24 included the financial assets /23.
Okay, so this space is included
Yep.
in the maximum 23?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Sorry, we got time just for one more comment.
Professor Ramadas from the Asia Pacific IPv6 Council. I really like the proposal. It's solid. Needs some work. It needs some refinement, but good job.
Real quick.
It was there before you, so if you're very quick.
Very quick.
Okay.
Thank you. Pankaj Chaturvedi, ISPI. So I think in the past, the /23, the block which has been assigned to the new startups, that proposal, that policy is in place. So anybody who needs additional blocks, he can procure it from the market. That's very clear, and everybody is doing it. So there should not be any backdoor entry of anybody buying, taking allocation of /24 additional blocks. Thank you.
Thank you. Last one.
John Sweeting, the Aaron Chief Experience Officer. Aaron actually has a policy for this. It's been around for a long time. It's in our number resource policy, section 4.10. It's dedicated IPv4 allocation to facilitate IPv6 deployment. We reserved a /10 many years ago for this specific purpose. I think we're still somewhere around 14,000 /24s left in that pool. We've given out about 2,000. And our run rate is like, it'll take us to like 2038 or something before we would run out of that. But you could look at that policy just to see how we're doing. It's not that hard. The first one they come in for, if they need dual stacking their DNS servers and stuff, they get it. After that, if they need a second or a third one, then we get really down and deep with the looking at why they need it. Needs-based for IPv6 translation services, yes. They have to provide their whole plan, what they're doing. Sometimes we ask for network configs. It all depends on how many they have and how many they're trying to get. Oh,
Thank
and it doesn't count against any of their other wholly, like for the wait list or anything else, it doesn't count.
Thank you for your input. Okay. So this policy proposal has been discussed on the mailing list and in the room today. The APNIC PDP requires the community to reach consensus on general agreement on the proposal before we can proceed. So I will now make the consensus call. You'll be given the opportunity to indicate whether you strongly support the proposal, or neutral, or if you object the proposal or strongly object the proposal. If you strongly object the proposal and you didn't step up, we'll ask you to step up and explain why. So those who strongly support this proposal, please raise your hands. Thank you. Those who support the proposal, please raise your hand. Thank you. If you are neutral to this proposal, please raise your hand. Thank you. If you oppose this proposal, please raise your hand. Thank you. And if you strongly oppose this proposal? Thank you, Matt. I will now confer with my co-chairs, and I'll get back to you very shortly. Okay. There was no consensus for this proposal so far. As the community failed to reach a consensus, the chair will send back to the mailing list for another version. And so you can take into account all the feedback, and hopefully we'll have more feedback on the mailing list as well. And I think you've got a good thing going, and it should, with the next version, it could be good for the next OPM meeting. Thank you very much, Tomohiro-san.
Thank you so much for your discussion. Very appreciate. Thank you.
So this concludes this first open policy meeting. And we'll see you for the next one in after the break. Have a coffee and be there in 30 minutes. Thank you all.